And welcome to another edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How are you guys doing?
Well, man, I was telling you guys earlier, just moved into a new place, so fingers crossed there's no more buffering for all our viewers out there. I know over the years, man, I've had some major blackouts when it comes to the Wi-Fi, so I think we should be all fixed on that end, man, and using that Wi-Fi to start fantasy football analysis, man. It's that time of year. We finally reached August, man. It's right around the corner.
Oh, I know, man. This is the first weekend. Started to do some mock drafting right now. Made some tier lists of positional players. Did a lot of mock drafts and listening to some podcasts, watching some videos, man, of the upcoming season. So I'm in full go mode right now, man. I'm absolutely in full go mode. And it feels good to be back looking at sports again, because without any basketball news and obviously nothing with football yet right now, man, sports season has been completely dead. Like, if you're in the sports industry right now, this is when you go on vacation. This is when Woj goes down to the Bahamas, man, to enjoy his life, because now, nothing going on right now in the sports world, especially in America's sports world.
Yeah, like Peebush kind of foreshadowed, man. It's basically fantasy football season. You know, me, myself, I need to get in a couple draft rooms, see if I can get my chops back up and see who I'll be drafting. And that's exactly that is exactly where we're going to start out. Fantasy for a lot of people, I feel like over the years has grown, and there's so many variations in how leagues are played. But one thing that is true is that quarterbacks are sometimes not important. Sometimes they are important. And I wanted to ask the guys' opinions on who are a couple of guys that are trending up and a couple of guys that are trending down. And Peebush, we're going to start with trending up. I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh man, this is tough because I think there's I know we could talk about a couple. I won't talk about them, but I think Fields and Lawrence, I think it's hard to consider them trending up because I feel like that was the end of the season for them, and they were really
especially Fields,
especially Fields,
monster games.
But Trevor Lawrence was also bringing his team into the playoffs, right, for the first time in a long time. So I think he ended up finishing about top 8 last year. Obviously, Fields 7th in total rushing across all players last year with nearly 1,200 yards rushing and 7 rushing touchdowns. I don't see him maybe breaking another 1,000 this year. It's possible, but I think he is going to try and throw the ball more, especially with the addition of DJ Moore. So I do think he's going to still, be considered probably a top 6 quarterback in fantasy purposes, just for points per game. But I'm looking at a guy that obviously is always on people's minds when it comes to fantasy football, but he had a bit of an off year with injuries and contract disputes, and that's Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is, for as much as you can consider him trending upwards, I think he really was just trending down because of all the storylines that were going on last year. He dropped those 240 pieces like early on in the season. Everyone thought he was going MVP mode, but man, they got a solid wide receiver room now. I mean, they got that rookie, Sean, right? Zay Flowers, right?
Zay.
Is that him?
Yeah.
Zay, and then obviously Odell Beckham. Still got Mark Andrews. This is definitely his best rotation of a receiving core that he's had in his career. No excuses, man. I know we give him every year. We're like, Lamar, you got no excuses. But the other big thing that complements him is that J.K. Dobbins is in a contract year. And he's been talking all this smack about how he deserves a contract. Well, I have you on my dynasty team, sir. You better damn well show up this year because I'm paying you too much money, and what you were potentially asking for in a time when running backs are getting slighted in contracts. So
to put it lightly.
Exactly. So this is a team that kind of has a lot to prove this year for what seems to be like the 4th season in a row that they have a lot to prove. But I feel like they finally have some pieces, young pieces as well as some veterans that can help, Lamar potentially progress further in his passing game and obviously assist in the rushing attack with a hopefully healthy J.K. Dobbins. So I'm looking at Lamar. This guy needs to have a big season. I still think he'll be a top 5 quarterback drafted, probably around the Fields territory after the big 3 of Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts. And then you kind of got the Burrows, Herberts, trailing behind, but they just don't have that upside with the rushing. So I got Lamar Jackson as my number 1 trending up quarterback.
Nah, that's such a great pick that you took my pick, man. That was my pick, man. Lamar Jackson. When you said that, I was like, man, this dude, we forgot he had one of the greatest QB seasons of all time. Like 27 fantasy points, legitimately. If you had him on your fantasy team that year, your winning odds of winning a championship was like 50-50 because how good he was, like being pretty much scoring 6 more points than the second best quarterback that year. So obviously, Zay Flowers, mentioned the new offensive coordinator, pass friendly. They say he's be throwing the football a little more, so get a little more passing yards out there. And I already mentioned the rookie and stuff. So I totally agree with Lamar Jackson, man. But this guy I have in mind too is also a little more low key. He's got a little scandals, but I am going to be objective on the field only. I'm looking at Deshaun Watson, man. Deshaun Watson. Obviously, last year he was atrocious. Like he was god awful. Like he's god awful. Makes a lot of sense. Got to go a year of football off. Obviously, a new team, new coach, new teammates, trying to get acclimated. Coming back in the middle of the season with all the drama in the first couple of weeks, and him coming back, I think like in the double digits, like week 12, I forgot. Like the season was pretty much over. The season's pretty much over. They just want to reacclimate Deshaun Watson in. But this Cleveland Browns offense, I like it. And offensive line, I always love their offensive line. Nick Chubb this year was going to be giving a lot of easy passing lanes because you got Nick Chubb on the full. Oh, man, he's going to get some beautiful looks for Amari Cooper out there. The Jets guy Elijah Moore out there. So he got some legitimate weapons for Deshaun this year. And I'm just like, this guy, I truly believe that when he was in his prime, he was a tier 1 quarterback in real life and fantasy quarterback. This guy was putting up 21, 22, 23 points a game. And he also has rushing ability. So I'm looking at Deshaun Watson. The thing is, when you take a year off, people forget about you. So this is why you could get him in the later rounds right now. Like, obviously, right now, there's been a huge QB push in the first couple rounds after Jalen Hurts' insane season, Josh Allen and Mahomes. These guys I've seen some of these guys go early 3rd round, late 2nd. Like, these are guys that are like, okay, this guy, I want a guy that get 24, 25 points a week, and I'm going to get that QB position and lock it up and not get a bust of a draft pick. So a lot of people I'm seeing mock drafts right now, they're taking these guys real high. But I like a little more upside because right now the value is baked in those top 3. Like everybody know those guys are elite. Tier 1, no doubt about it. And you got the middle tiers, Lamar, little Fields, maybe your boy Herbert, man, those type of guys in there. Maybe Trevor Lawrence on the back end. But I feel like Deshaun Watson is probably in that tier 3 list right now where you could scoop him up in the 8th to 10th round. And he could potentially finish as a guy that averages 21 to 23 points a game on this Cleveland Browns offense. So Deshaun Watson right now, I'm like, Deshaun Watson.
You know what it reminds me of a bit, Zoo? I know they're not talent-wise very similar, but what Jared Goff did last year and his consistent offensive play is what Deshaun Watson could potentially provide. I don't know if his rushing ability is going to fully be there. I think he's going to kind of play it a bit more passive. And meaning like he's going to be kind of in the pocket. Obviously, we know his talent. His arm talent's ridiculous. He did it with like no names like Will Fuller, man. Like it's just been sad to see kind of his downfall. Obviously, kind of to his own accord, of course. But I do hope he has a bounce back year. And there's another guy, Zoo, that could have a bounce back year with a new head coach, man. Russell Wilson. I'm actually curious to see what Russ does. I'm not saying take him as your main quarterback, but he could be a nice backup that you get really later on. See how he progresses during the year because we know the weapons they have out in Denver. They're pretty solid wide receiving core if they can stay healthy.
The top 2, yeah, for sure.
But with Sean Payton, man, I'm very curious to see what he does because similar sized quarterback as Drew Brees. We all know the magic that he worked down there in New Orleans for so many years. Got him a Super Bowl. So that's we don't need to go in depth on Russell there, but I do think he's somebody to watch and another guy that had a horrid year last year, to say the least. Now, he did have a couple mid-20 performances. He might have had a handful, 3 or 4, but nothing crazy. And this is a guy that we had been seeing as a consistent starting fantasy quarterback since really 2013 probably. So this was really his first major off year. And, they do have weaponry out there. So that's another guy I'm taking a look at later in the draft.
Oh, yeah, you could definitely get Russ in the 12th, 13th round. Yep. Pretty much like a free pick. This is when you're down to 3rd string, 2nd string, running backs and wide receiver. You get a nice backup quarterback in Russell Wilson, man. So I totally agree with that, man. I totally agree with that. But man, oh man, this is a guy I have my eyes on. And I'm very torn about my man. He's no longer on my franchise anymore. He's no longer on my franchise anymore. My former man, I can't say he's my man anymore because he's not on my team. But Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets now, which is still weird to say. He's still in green, but he's in a big city now. His brother gave up $35 million, which is one
selfless.
That is the definition of selflessness. Like, Jesus Christ. $35 million?
For the first time in his life.
That was fully guaranteed. And he's like, nah, give it to the other players. I'm just like, what the heck's going on down there? Like, he loves Garrett Wilson. He loves the Jets coach. He loves his boy, Nathaniel Hackett, man. I'm back with his favorite coordinator. Like, I'm just like, this guy looks so happy. And I'm just looking at this brother. Garrett Wilson's going to have a hell of a year. It's already baked in right now.
Overvalued.
There's a lot of hype right now with Garrett Wilson. I truly get it, but we got to still see the magic happen. But Aaron Rodgers as a 10th round pick, I might be bid again, man. Last year, he took a lot of my teams, man. That was like the Titanic. I had Aaron Rodgers drop 12 points a game for me.
Aaron Rodgers and Allen Robinson.
I was lucky to get 15 fantasy points from Aaron Rodgers. Like, if I got 15 from Aaron Rodgers, I was like, okay, not going to sink my season. But this year, man, I get a same massive discount. But that Jets team is a legitimately good team because I like the weapons. Your boy Breece Hall coming back from injury. They might sign Dalvin Cook in the future. So they're trying to load up right now. They're trying to make a run this year. They're trying to win a championship. And you got a motivated Aaron Rodgers with that attitude right now and this selflessness. And it looks like a change, man. Like, this guy's like a Make-A-Wish Foundation to give me away all this money, man. So I might have to. I'm ready to get burned again this year, man. I'm all ready to get burned again.
You ready to get hurt?
Yeah, man. I'll take if I get a little later. People take the elite quarterback. I'll take a Deshaun. I'll take an Aaron Rodgers just in case. One insurance for another. If both of them bust, I don't know. But I'm okay with that this year. I'm okay with going late and taking two quarterbacks that have elite upside.
Yeah. Because I think it's flipped this year, Zoo. A lot of the guys that ended up having unbelievable years were the ones that fell. I mean, Hurts was a solid pick. You know, I think he went maybe 6th round in some leagues. 7th
he was
round.
A steal last year.
But Fields and Lawrence were both steals last year. They both went in like 11th, 12th round and onwards. It's going to be hard to find those guys. I think it's going to be not really the younger quarterbacks this year. It's going to be the guys that we're trying to see rally back from previous good seasons. So it is going to be an intriguing year just for quarterbacks in general.
Yeah. I agree with all, like, pretty much Deshaun and Lamar were my top two on that list. So I kind of agree with that. I wanted to throw some questions at you guys. So it's funny you brought up Russell Wilson, right? Because I think it was Zoo that brought him up.
Russell, yeah.
Pat.
So what's funny is I was looking at, and this is, everybody has their, full disclaimer, everybody has their app and their channel that they do the draft on. They have Yahoo, CBS, ESPN, whatever. But this is based off CBS. So they had two of these guys ranked, and I wanted to ask a question of, and they were ranked similarly close in terms of QB rank, because I wanted to ask the question of, as your backup, so like your stash, if you had like, whatever round you're in, you're just like, I'll just take a chance on one of these guys. You've drafted mostly all the guys, on your team. Who would you rather have as a stash QB, not your starter? Jordan Love or Russell Wilson?
Oh, Russell Wilson, man. Stop it. You're talking about Jordan Love?
So let me tell you the ranking, though. Let me tell you the ranking, though.
Actually give me a real competition.
But no, listen, I think it's a crazy question, but look where they're ranked. Russell right now is ranked 18th on CBS, and Jordan Love is 22.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too far away. And to me, I think it speaks to Jordan Love having, I would say that Jerry Jeudy and what's the other guy? Sutton's probably a better top two. But I think just the Packers team overall in terms of running backs and pass catchers and their tight end Tanya, like they got weapons. Jordan Love is average.
The Bears,
Bears
stole Tanya. Okay. Their tight end's a little open, but their wide receivers.
I think they drafted a guy in like the 2nd round from one school, or whatever. But I thought he was going to be a backup. But I guess he might end up being the starter. But they drafted pretty well at receiver. They still got Aaron Jones. AJ Dillon, hopefully he has a bounce back. It would be my luck because I drafted him last year super high and he couldn't get any type of traction as a goal line back. But I think that speaks to more so with Jordan Love that he has a lot of weapons and he can run. So I think they're going to factor that in. And if you see, like, to me, it's like, I don't know how many people, at least fantasy-wise, we're not talking about as a quarterback and winning games, but I'm talking about fantasy-wise, saw Justin Fields coming last year. And I'm not saying he's going to have Justin Fields' athleticism and talent, but I mean, he has a chance to be a nice stash. You'd be like, who, he's not going to be my starter. Like, you could stash and be like, hey, he can do some
he's
stuff.
Probably because you can't call him a rookie, right? But like inexperienced quarterback.
He's definitely not a rookie.
Besides, the only one that I'm actually curious about is Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And Purdy?
I'm saying compared to Jordan Love, like another inexperienced young quarterback.
Yeah.
It's not CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, right?
I would bring up a rookie. Anthony Richardson.
But that's a given though. He's a top 10 guy. He's gonna produce. Like, he's gonna produce easily. Because they got him in the consensus on CBS is he's a top 10 guy already without playing. So I didn't want to put him in there because that would have been an easy one.
And they might lose Jonathan Taylor, man. He's requesting a trade right now.
Jonathan Taylor, get in line.
Relax.
Get in line. Everybody's requesting, as a running back, is requesting new contracts and more pay. I get it.
They're watching too much NBA TV, man. They're just following the Dame Lillard, the James Hardens, man. So, I mean, yeah, it is going to be hard to find. I think where you're going to get a good stash, though, Sean, is kind of those veteran backups that we're looking for, kind of a resurgence.
I just was shocked. I was just shocked they were that close. Yeah. Like, Jordan Love has been in the league for a long time, and it's just like he hasn't really, to Zoo's point, he hasn't proven much. But it's like I think they're banking on like the Packers' weapons, and I think too you got to also factor in that I'm not saying he's going to make a huge leap, but you got to understand his head coach drafted him. Yeah. He wasn't drafted by another coach and came in. Like, he's the guy he wanted. So I think he may tailor that offense to the strengths of what Love would do. But I mean, if you're asking me, I would take Love over Wilson. I would. I don't know
if the upside, I could see it.
Yeah, the upside. Russell, because I'm stashing him. I'm not going to play him unless he's whatever. And I don't know if Russell. Everybody's banking on Sean Payton being this guru. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that was happening with Russell last year was because of he just wasn't good. Yeah, he wasn't good.
Hack it. And Hackett, as Sean Payton said, one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of football. He ain't lying.
It was a 50-50, but Russell looked pretty bad, bro. Well, I mean, how can you look that bad with all the time?
What it reminds me of? It just reminds me of what Matt Nagy did, man. He crawled back into his quarterback coaching role, man. Once he just flopped as a head coach.
Matt Nagy slander continues.
Hey, of course, man. I always find any chance I can, man. But yeah, I mean, it'll be tough.
I just thought that ranking was crazy.
And I don't know, Sean, if we want to dive into it, but like, there's a couple guys that I think are going to have to come back down from stardom from last year. And that's
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Smith, man.
One hit wonder, baby. Let's go.
Geno Smith. Now, the thing is, they got Smith and Jigba, man. It's not like they lost any of their quality receiving core. But I just don't think he can replicate it. Like, he was unbelievable.
What was his ranking last year at the end?
I think he might have been.
He had to have been like top 5, 6, yes, somewhere in that
7.
range.
He might have been. I think Lawrence was kind of catching up to him towards the end of the year, but after a slow start, and then Lawrence, I know, ended 8th in standard scoring, of course. But I don't know, man, because Russell Wilson had the same thing, right? And they had such a good, core there, and still left, right? And then you got this Geno Smith guy coming in who's been a perennial backup. Probably the best backup in the league for a long time. And you're asking this guy to go out and throw 30 more touchdowns? I mean, they have a great running back room. The Kenneth Walker, RB1, of course. Sean's favorite player. Andy's least favorite. But so they have a legitimate offense, but one, they're in a pretty tough division. With the Cardinals kind of oh man. I want to talk about a sorry story. Kyler Murray continuing to trend downwards, man. Obviously, he's got the injury issues and all that, but after they got rid of Hopkins and just let him walk, I mean, there's another quarterback. So, Geno Smith, it's not that I don't think he's good and he's just going to completely flop. I just don't think he's going to be worth. If people overvalue Geno Smith, I think that is the worst overvaluation at the quarterback position this year. Is to assume that he's probably going to replicate what he did back in the 2022 season. So, I don't think there's too much else to add there. I think it's one of those seasons, man. And it's not like he's a young guy. Like, Zoo, you remember when Cam Newton had that unbelievable year and then he had a regression
Oh yeah.
his
Oh, yeah.
sophomore season? That was unexpected because he's young and you'd assume him to replicate it, right?
Mhm.
I think Geno Smith's on like the polar opposite version of that. And I think he'll still be a solid quarterback, maybe kind of a Kirk Cousins level, something like that. Maybe has a great game here or there.
Placeholder, yeah.
Yeah, he's just kind of a placeholder, a good little a streamer quarterback, man, for a bye week. But don't overvalue him.
Interesting. Geno
Yeah, I know.
Smith.
Yeah.
This guy, unbelievable season last year, but I totally agree with you on Geno, man. But for me, man, I'm gonna pick a guy that I feel like in consensus of the football world, everybody loves. Elite. Mr. Cool himself, man, Joe Burrows. I'm telling you, man, when I see these mock drafts, man, they have him in the tier right below the big three, aka Hurts, Mahomes, Allen. And I love Joe Burrow. But in fantasy football, in real life football, he's elite. But in fantasy football this year, I can't do it, man. I can't take him that high. Because you know who I in front of him? Lamar Jackson.
And Justin Fields.
For sure. And he's going around, like, go in front or right behind him right now. So, but I have Lamar Jackson just a tier in front of him. And Mr. Fields himself, because of the rushing ability.
Right.
Like, there's some rushing cheese that this guy could do, man. Rushing 700, 800 projected yards this year. So I'm going to take that rushing yards. And obviously, your Bears got a lot of better offensive weapons. And hopefully DJ Moore can give Mr. Fields the wide receiver one that he's always needed. And hopefully unlocks his passing game. And hopefully he also gets better, too, with his decision making. So I have Mr. Fields in front of him, too. Justin Herbert. I have him in front of Joe.
They're similar.
Last year, they're very similar. But I think Justin Herbert, first 2 years as a rookie, he had one of the best rookie years ever. Two back-to-back season, 22 points, fantasy points a game. That's elite quarterback. Last year, after the rib injury, he was just not the same.
No.
He was not the same. And obviously his weapons getting injured, like Mike Williams, I feel like I talk about this brother every year, getting injured every single year. So maybe it's just in his DNA not to play like every single game. And same thing with Keenan Allen getting nicked up too. So but they drafted a rookie wide receiver in the first round. So hopefully he helps Herbert out a little more. And obviously he still got Eckler back there. But I feel like Herbert is the ultimate bounce back candidate right now. Because you go from 22, 16, regression to the mean, baby. You're going back to 22. So I have him in front of Joe Cool himself. So that's three quarterbacks that a lot of people are, I would say, majority of the consensus right now, they got Joe Burrow above those guys.
All three, yeah.
Exactly. So I would pick all three of those guys over Joe Burrow. Like, obviously, I still have Joe Burrow as a top 10 quarterback, but based on his ADP, I am fading him at his ADP.
Do you think that has to do with they're just sick skill talent?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think they're probably banking just now. This is pre-injury, but like, I think they were banking on just Jamar having like a crazy explosion, and then because they basically have two receiver one. So I think they're thinking like the amount of touchdown passes that Joe Burrow's going to throw may kind of offset someone like maybe Herbert or even Lawrence, because I think Lawrence has a good rushing upside too. But in terms of weapons, Calvin Ridley, I think, is going to have a huge year, and we'll talk about that with receivers, but that's still kind of an unknown because it's kind of like, he was off that year and whatever.
Looking
so
real
I think
nice,
they're just banking on
those routes.
Jamar. Yeah, he looks like a dude for real, which is, I think, it's going to even help Christian Kirk even more. But, I think that probably has something to do with Burrow maybe getting just that explosion. And plus, too, I think sometimes a lot of these guys that be ranking fantasy stuff, like, you're talking about the tiers, like, I know they go off of stats, but sometimes name recognition just gets put and lumped in with stuff, especially if you're dealing with a site that's just not as, that's not what they do. They're just looking for clicks. So it's just like, oh, let's just put Burrow up there, even though we're not going to look at where he ranked last year. So it's just like, whatever.
Especially right after the injury, so it feeds into the algorithm, Yeah. People just
I'm going to be interested to see if he drops at all. They're saying with a couple weeks. Yeah.
Any lower bodily injuries, man. And Joe Burrow for a quarterback, he gets injured pretty constantly. He doesn't have like obviously he had that catastrophic injury, but he's getting nicks up like every couple of years. He missed a couple of games, so he is not.
I wonder if that's the same leg.
Games. Yeah,
that got torn apart.
And that's how it does it though. When you hurt one ligament, you kind of overcompensate, right? Yeah. And then you end up tightening up other muscles, and it's all tied together, obviously. But
so
Yeah, man.
Speaking,
I agree with you, Zoo, a little bit. I think slightly overvalued, but I still think he'll have a great year. I think you just may have a couple better options than him, so maybe not reaching too far.
speaking of the AFC North, I think FanDuel had the Bengals, and I don't know if this was updated, but had them favored, which maybe they have some intel in thinking Burrow won't be out that long. But that was one of the more, I guess you could say, positive diagnoses if you're a Bengals fan of seeing it was only a calf strain. But with this division, whether you're talking about the Bengals, the Steelers, Ravens, any of the Browns, any of the teams in that division, based on the quarterbacks that each team has, just looking at from the outside going in, it could go either way. Like these are one of the few divisions where it's like, hey, if you're a fan of each team, you're like, I like our quarterback. Let's go to war. Maybe the Steelers are less it gets, maybe the Steelers are less an extent, but it's just like their pedigree of winning and how they, always end up to somehow get 7 or 8 wins. I think if they look at Kenny Pickett, they're like, okay, he can get it done. So I want to ask the guys, what are their, thoughts on this division? How did they see it going? Like I said, I just mentioned the Burrow news. So Zoo, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah, you speak about the Steelers, man. You go right there, last place right there. Kenny Pickett, man, like he's a cute little quarterback. Like they started Mitchell Trubisky over the brother last year for some reason. So obviously you don't believe when you start Trubisky over a quarterback, that means you don't really believe him.
Exactly, he's a rookie.
He's a rookie, Zoo.
He's a rookie. But Mitchell Trubisky, man, stop it, man.
He's a veteran.
He's a veteran that sucks, man. Deserves to be on the bench with me, man. And that's Mitchell Trubisky.
Well, he is.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy with the clipboard and gives advice to the guy that's starting.
He's the new Chase
Gardner Minshew,
Yeah. I'm just like, I take
don't hate on Minshew.
I'll take Minshew over Trubisky any day. So Kenny Pickett, man, I'm fading him. Obviously, the offense last year, very unimpressive. Just very unimpressive.
What about Najee, Zoo?
No, Deontay Johnson.
And George.
Deontay Johnson.
And George. They got weapons, bro. And what's it, the tight end
George Pickens.
They got dudes on their offense, bro.
He kind of nice.
Kind of nice.
He might be more than kind of.
He might be.
When you get Kenny Pickett throwing him, you're only kind of. Because you ain't going to be exploding with 1,200 yards with Kenny Pickett throwing the football right now. He's young. He's developing, man. They're giving him time to grow, maturing with the defense and stuff, getting used to his players, obviously. Like the Steelers last year, very boring football. And the offense is just not there. It was like, you got to be an elite offensive football team to win football game. I say defense wins championship. Offense wins and gets you in the playoffs. You got to get in the playoffs.
The deciding factor.
Yeah. You go rough ride, be a good defense right in the playoffs and turn it up. But offensively, man, you got to be throwing buckets, but they ain't going to have any aerial attack right now. So they in last place, missing the playoffs. For me, winning it, man, I know everybody likes the Bengals. I loved this team last year, and they were looking pretty good until Lamar got injured. This is a team in the Baltimore Ravens without Lamar Jackson in the playoffs almost beat the Cincinnati Bengals in a bloody game. Like the offense, like
it was brutal.
It was disgusting.
Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, but Tyler Huntley almost got it done.
He did.
If he didn't turn over the football,
which is crazy.
Like Tyler Huntley, he's actually a really good backup quarterback
for that system.
But you go from Huntley to Lamar Jackson with more weapons. He made the call for Odell. He's like, draft a wide receiver. Help me out, Zay Flowers. Hopefully Zay Flowers turns out a little better than Marquise Brown, the last wide receiver.
Or Rashad Bateman.
Oh, yeah, Rashad Bateman.
He's another guy coming back.
He's coming back from injury. He's been in and out in the lineup. So you got some weapons coming. Obviously, you got his big boy, Mark Andrews. So right now, this is the most elite skill set of perimeter guys out there and these wide receivers and pass catchers that Lamar Jackson has had in his entire career. So you give this guy an opportunity. Obviously, in the playoffs so far, the dude, he has been not that impressive.
Choke job.
But the way the guys talk, he's like, okay, yeah, rushing is cool, but you got to be able to throw the football. So they're going to be relying on that, and you're giving him the weapons. You're giving him a new coordinator, a little more, I would say, present offense, not the rough ride, prehistoric offense of running the football. You got to have a little more balance and skewing it towards the passing. And Lamar Jackson openly in an interview is talking about, we got to embrace the pass a little more. And he's going to get this opportunity right now. And I believe that Lamar Jackson is going to lead his team to the winning division and have a nice little playoff berth, man. And with Joe Burrow's calf strain and me fading Joe Burrows and the Cincinnati Bengals, who's been elite the last 2 years, Baltimore Ravens, baby. I'm all in, baby. I'm all in with the purple this year. I'm all in with the purple.
I don't mind that pick. I actually have the Ravens winning this one too.
Oh, you do?
And I think it's also just the Bengals, man. Like, right? They let Mixon go.
He's there. No, he's there.
Is he still there? Okay.
He reduced his salary.
He took a pay cut.
That's right. He took a pay cut. Yeah. I knew there was some news when I was out of town, but I don't know. I know you were just talking about, Zoo, that like rushing attack is not important. I think it is important. Maybe not as much that you need an elite passing game. Obviously, you need to be able to score quickly, especially against a lot of those AFC teams like the Bills and Chiefs that can just throw points up on the board. That's partially why the Bengals have had so much success against Mahomes. I think they've now only lost one game against Mahomes in the Burrow versus Mahomes dynasty. I'm just brushing up on my quarterbacks Netflix as of lately, so that's a big pain point in the show for Mahomes is trying to get back at Burrow. So obviously this is a team that has really solid experience for how little they've spent in the league. I mean, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Burrow, they've all been in the league only a couple of years, and they've gotten very far every single time pretty much, obviously besides his major injury. So it's hard for me to just completely pass on the Bengals as a potential division winner. But I do think the Ravens just have the best opportunity this year. I give them more of an upside as a team. I think that we know what to expect with the Bengals. Obviously, if Burrow comes back and does not play any of the preseason, I think he should be pretty good for week one. And even if he doesn't play week one, he should be back in the first couple weeks. And at that point, obviously every game matters. But with an extra game now in the NFL schedule, like we've seen past year or so, it does provide them a little bit more opportunity to continue trending upwards as the season goes on, even if he does miss a game or two at the beginning. But I am curious to see what the Browns do. I know we didn't mention them. I don't think they're going to outplay the Ravens or the Bengals, but they actually might have one of the most well-rounded offenses if Deshaun Watson is up to his.
It's on one man's shoulders.
It is. But you could also argue that it's the same thing for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, he's got to stay healthy.
He's got to stay healthy. He's got to actually throw the ball. Like obviously Deshaun Watson, we know what he can do with his arm. It was just getting back into the groove. I mean, he'd pretty much been out almost 2 seasons, right? Yeah. So you're talking about a guy that hasn't really been looking at NFL defenses that have been adjusting to this ever-changing passing game in the NFL over the past couple of years, and he hadn't even seen it other than watching it on the TV screen, probably. So they got Nick Chubb. They still have one of the best ground and pound running backs in the league. Obviously, they got Amari Cooper. They have a solid receiving core. Is Njoku still there as well? I think he might be. Underrated tight end, Zoo. He could be trending upwards if Deshaun Watson continues to grow. So, could this end up being one of those divisions where we're talking about both wild cards coming out of it? I think it's going to come down to there, and then obviously the AFC East is going to be the big one because you got the Jets, right, with the Dolphins, and then obviously the Bills. So I know we'll talk about that one later on this month. But I am curious to see, because seeing the Browns team with how much talent they have in third place, that's tough to watch, especially as a Cleveland Browns fan, when you were expecting your team to just start taking off when you paid this man $200+ million in guaranteed money. So I do think the Ravens have the best upside. I would put money on them if I'm betting on the division. I think the Bengals odds are just way too heavily favored on pretty much what you were saying, Zoo, the overvaluation of Joe Burrow, consistently doing it for a third year in a row. So I do have them 1-2. I think it could be interchangeable. But if I'm a betting man, which I am sometimes, especially with the NFL, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens as well.
To the FanDuel
account, so. You got to make that deposit.
For too long.
Nah, man. It's got built up since that Caleb Martin bet back in the
callback.
Man. So callback right there.
I'm with you guys in terms of like the Ravens, Bengals kind of being that 1-2. But I truly think with this division, nothing would be shocking. And I know Zoo's down on Kenny Pickett, but I feel like nothing would be shocking if either one of these teams win the division. Because as much as we're talking about Kenny Pickett and him not maybe having as much talent. I mean, it's pretty obvious they don't have as much talent as the other three guys, but it's still the Steelers, and they always figure out how to get 7 to 8 wins. So it's like if you at some point you can't just keep saying, well, that they don't have the talent. Like I think Mike Tomlin and his coaching staff, first off, they do a really good job at drafting receivers. So they're going to have guys that can get open. I mean, I know we talk about Deontay and George, but there might be a third or fourth guy we're not even talking about, and he may go off because that's just what they do.
Yep.
But I do think they will tailor a lot of the stuff and their play calls and their system to protecting Kenny Pickett. And if Najee has a bounce back year, like we could be looking up in middle of November, like why the hell are the Steelers freaking 7-4? Like what the hell? But like I said, if I'm a betting man, I'm not placing a bet on it. I'm just saying that could potentially happen.
Yeah,
I'm with
very open.
I'm with you. I'm with you guys with the Ravens. I do think another sleeper for them, which kind of depends on how. Because the OC they got, he claims they're going to do way more down the field passing and all that type of stuff. I think Isaiah Likely as a number 2 tight end could actually be a guy who could get some nice routes underneath because he's built more like a receiver. Now he may be more of a red zone guy or somebody to just stretch the field with, but he could be a guy that could really give Lamar another 6'5", 6'6" guy in the middle of the field to throw to. So, add that along with the guys you guys mentioned, like. I don't know, man. I think this offense has a chance to be really explosive, and we always know that Ravens always have a defense, so I'm never worried about that. The one thing for them, I am going to be curious about. I know you brought up people's J.K. Dobbins. I've never really been high on him. I think it's partly because he's just a shorter back and he's not super fast. I just feel like he's plodding and he's been injured.
Austin Eckler.
I don't think Melvin Gordon is going to have to bounce back that some people may think he may have. I don't think that's going to come. So then now you're looking at Gus Edwards. I think he's still there.
I just don't see Dobbins. I'll just tell you that.
Oh, you better.
Yeah.
You better.
I just, I mean, I don't even know why Dalvin wouldn't go there because I feel like he can go there and maybe start. But I'm not super excited about their backfield. So to my point, if they're not able to run the ball as effective this year and they're just concentrated on the pass, I think that may lend itself to maybe exposing Lamar a little bit more because I do think he can throw the ball really well. But, him throwing 45 or 40 times a game, I still want to see that balance. So that's the only thing that scares me about them. The Bengals, man, we don't know. If Burrow is out till week 5 or 6, I think they're done because even though I don't know who their backup is, I just don't think he's going to be able to get Chase and Higgins and Tyler Boyd the ball as efficient. So, to your point, Peebush, man, the Browns is the biggest wild card because they do have one of the top offensive lines in NFL. So I think that's going to help and aid with Deshaun and him, maybe easing his way back into becoming a top quarterback. Like you said, Chubb's arguably top 2, top 3 running back. So he's going to be efficient. Njoku. I think their third receiver, Peoples-Jones, I think with them getting Elijah Moore and him maybe becoming a nice slot number 2 will take the pressure off of Peoples-Jones. And I think he has a nice upside because he's another big body receiver. So that could give him, I think that can give him more options to maybe throw the ball down the field. And I think the Browns defense is going to be, I think every defense in this division for the most part is going to be pretty legit. Yeah. So I don't think that's going to be a worry for any of the teams. So I think the biggest wild card is going to be Deshaun and the Browns. And, I don't know. I wonder what the Browns odds would be. Like if I can get super really good odds on them, I might throw some money down on them.
Correct me. I guess maybe plus 375, plus 350 maybe. I know the Steelers are like plus 500.
Yeah.
So plus 500.
Because I think I saw they might be in the 3s. If I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean they're obviously third because you can't not put the Bengals or Ravens.
No
matter how you price
380.
Plus 380. See, there you go. See, look at that, man. I might as well just start betting now.
Cincinnati Bengals are plus 150, and the Baltimore Ravens a nice juicy plus 220. I have to put some money. Oh man, I got to deposit my my FanDuel account right now, man.
Well, Zoo, I'd hold off just in case there are any injuries during the preseason. That's what screwed me with
that. Is true. That is true.
And to be honest, I don't think Burrow is going to miss that much time. From the initial reports, it sounds like
that's probably why the odds haven't shifted.
Exactly. And that's also why I think you mentioned this earlier, Sean. they might know something more than we do, right? They're
Yeah.
obviously it's Vegas, man.
They usually do.
They're in
That's why
bed
they
with
keep
the
building all
league.
these $1 million casinos down in Vegas,
Yeah.
because they know way more than we
That's why
do.
they
And
that's
we're
why they can put in
suckers
a
every time we put
couple
stuff
$1
in
billion worth for a damn sphere
Yeah.
to just show dumb stuff on there, man. It's just because of all the sports gambling money I've lost to Vegas this past couple of years, man. Personally fun to get myself.
We think we know it all, but yeah, they laugh every time we play. That would be if we had like a time capsule of just the people who watch like peons like us put bets in and just watch their faces as we put these bets in. They're like, look at these idiots putting like whatever on the Burrr or putting whatever. Like, look at these MVP odds. Look at these idiots. Like, let's get the building ready, another building ready in Vegas, so we can start taking these people's money.
MVP this year, man. MVP this year. Got to make a bet. Got to make a bet again this year. Last year was.
I'm sure we'll do accolade predictions.
Oh yeah,
or award predictions.
Yeah,
well, I got to shout out us. Justin Jeff, Offensive Player of the Year, man. Justin Jeff, Offensive Player of the Year last year. Yeah, that prediction.
Yeah,
he keep messing around. He might be getting some MVP odds. He's dirty. He's a different cat, man. He's a different cat. I think Kirk Cousins made limit, and I got a lot of respect for Kirk Cousins because, to your point, people was watching the QB1 show. Like, man, he's literally become one of my favorite players just in the league, because he just seems like he is like the embodiment of what you think of a QB1. Just the whole like life, lifestyle. But
locked in.
He might cap Justin Jefferson's potential, but man, I don't know, man. He has a really good knack for getting open and getting yards. So yeah, he do. And it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up getting drafted, like his consistency of where he gets drafted in a lot of these leagues. So, that was our review this week for fantasy and the division talk. Next week, we'll be continuing the same thing. You guys stay locked in for that. Make sure you follow us on bullheaded_pod. Like I said, fantasy football is here, so I may be doing some comparisons. I'm on Twitter, which is now, I guess, X. I'm going to start trying to crank up a little bit. Yeah, I know, right? It
looks
ridiculous.
So dumb.
Yeah, it looks crazy.
So dumb.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Elon.
Yeah.
I love Elon, but what the hell are you?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it either. But, I might start, because of the change of the Twitter going to X, I might be able to put some more different content on there. As always, I'm on TikTok, Bullheaded864, YouTube, Quantro Knows. Make sure you listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.